To love your enemy, we've got to take a look. Forgiveness. Now, let's look at these verses that we're focusing on one more time. You have heard that it is said, be kind to your friend and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies, bless anyone who curses you, do good to anyone who hates you, and pray for those who carry you away by force and persecute you. So last week we talked about who is your enemy, and I just wanted to point out, these verses, you can't really separate what they're saying, because anyone who curses you is your enemy. Okay, anyone that hates you, it can be your enemy, and those who persecute you. Now, we don't have too much of carrying away by force nowadays, but anyone who persecutes you or criticizes you, whatever. And so let's go. Okay, and let's go to our definition. Okay, the definition: a person who is actively opposed to or hostile to someone or something. And then this part is a thing or person that harms or weakens something or someone else, as in us. If there's a person in your life that is harming you or weakens you in one way or another, that's kind of considered an enemy. And this verse, it was just ringing in my mind all this week, and it does go along with this. Let's read it. Do not be afraid of those who kill the body, but who cannot kill the soul. But above all, be afraid of him who can destroy both the soul and the body in hell. Or we can just pull that out of it there. Be careful of those who can destroy your soul. They might destroy your body, kill your body, but the real danger is somebody that can destroy your soul. And that again is enemy. And what that is it's someone who just nags at you and gets under your skin, and you are totally tormented by it. And that's why they say hell. Now remember, hell from Aramaic is not a place where you go if you're a bad boy when you die. No, hell means mental torment or anguish. So if you have somebody, and that it says destroying the soul, but be careful, because people that eat at you and get under your skin put you in a state of mental torment, and that is hell. And remember from our other lessons, if you are tormented, if you have hate, frustration, resentment in return, then you can't enter the kingdom of heaven. You can't basically, you can't hear. We talk about the guidance from God, but basically, if you have that in your heart and whatnot, and it's bothering you, then you can't be part of the kingdom. And we're going to end with that. We're going to end with that as a why. Okay. Just keep that in mind. That's a really, and I'll tell you, there's more. I think there's more danger to someone who can really destroy you inwardly than people that can kill your body. I mean, that's it's just a lot more. There's a lot more of those who are trying to kill your soul. So, okay. Okay, forgive me there. All right, so we're going to go to forgiveness, because how do you love your enemy? Well, the first step, the major step, is forgiveness. And so we have a basic definition of forgive here, and to stop feeling angry or resentful towards someone for an offense, flaw, mistake, whatever. Okay. So what I've done is here so that we can kind of understand what we're talking about here and what Jesus was talking about. And you know, that it's also, Jesus' message was love your neighbor, but forgiveness, they're all intertwined in Jesus' teachings. So we go back to Matthew 6:12, which is the Lord's Prayer, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And forgive us our offenses as we have forgiven our offenders. For if you forgive men their faults, your Father in heaven will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive man, neither will your Father forgive even your faults. Now, I will tell you about these 14 and 15. These are scriptures that they do not attribute those to Jesus, and they were added later. But it is significant, because if if we do not forgive, okay, whomever, whatever, if we do not forgive, it's not that God won't forgive you, but God's not able to give you, because you have no room in your heart to accept the love which is going to help you forgive and replace the hatred. So people talk about this and sins and all that kind of stuff, but that's what that means. Not that God's going to punish you. He's not going to, no, it had nothing to do with that. But you have to forgive others. You have to forgive whomever, whatever it is you need to forgive in order for God to forgive you. And that's because you're full of resentment and hate, and there's no room for God's love to come through. So, okay, now that's the focal point of the Lord's Prayer. And I'm going to go down to the bottom one first, and then we'll talk about okay, Matthew 18:21. Then Peter came up and said to him, my Lord, if my brother is at fault with me, how many times should I forgive him? Up to 7 times? Jesus said to him, I do not say to you up to 7 times, but up to 70 times 77. Now, this is the typical Near Eastern writing style, okay? And 7 is a biblical number. So, And so it doesn't mean, oh, okay, 770, that's the 70 times 77 just means always. You always forgive. No matter how many times, you always forgive. And once again, that's at the heart of Jesus' teachings. Now, hold on just a minute here. Okay. Now, we have said, and it is very true, Jesus is the only prophet to come along that not only talked his teachings, but as we say, he not only talked, but he walked the walk. Jesus demonstrated all of his teachings. You just have to pick it out as you read the Gospels and pull the incidents out. And of course, now the one that stands out is when Jesus was on the cross, Luke 23:34. And Jesus said, "O Father, forgive them, for they know not what they are doing." Now keep these in mind, because we're gonna talk about this. Hopefully, someone will have something to say tonight besides me. Anyway, Luke 22:47. And this really is considered one of the major acts of forgiveness, although you don't really see it that way, that Jesus demonstrated. So while he was still speaking, this was in the Garden of Gethsemane, I think. Okay, behold, a multitude came, and he who is called Judah, most of you know them as Judas, but Judah, one of the 12, coming before them. And he drew near to Jesus and kissed him. For this was the sign he had given them. He whom I kiss is the one. Now, we have to kind of read between the lines here. Now, Jesus knew that Judah was, he maybe didn't know that he was going to kiss him, but he knew that Judah was the one. How did he know? Well, you know, when you work with people very closely, he was one of the disciples, and they start having problems. They start relating differently. They start acting differently. Well, that's how. Jesus knew that, but what did he, but Jesus didn't just cast him out and say, Judah, you don't have any right to do this. No, what did he say? He just said to him, Judah, do you betray the Son of Man with a kiss? And basically, he forgave them. He didn't get upset. He forgave Judah. And so that's Jesus demonstrating forgiveness. Now, all right. Now we're going to sort of sum up the forgiveness, and then I'm going to share a couple things. All right. So we must develop and maintain the capacity to forgive. He who is devoid of the power to forgive is devoid of the power to love. And that goes along with what I said. If you have all that resentment, hatred in your heart, you don't have room for love. You just don't have it. All right. And we must recognize that the evil deed of the enemy neighbor, the thing that hurts, never quite expresses all that he is. Now, what that is seeing the good in people, regardless of their behavior. We're looking at the behavior, and that's just not acceptable. But thinking beyond that, that here is a person that, yes, that's his behavior, but that may not be what he's all about. He might be having problems also. And so we would think beyond the behavior. Okay. Now, we must not seek to defeat or humiliate the enemy. This is a tough one. This is a tough one in our days. And this was from Martin Luther King Jr. And remember, Martin Luther King is the nonviolence, non-resistant ways, which began with Tolstoy back in the 1800s. So, but Martin Luther King, of course, in his lifetime, he followed that. Do not seek or humiliate, to defeat or humiliate the enemy. And he did not. And last but not least, okay, anyone then actualizing this kind of attitude and disposition toward an enemy, in reality, has no enemies. And that's a quote from Dr. Errico. If you hold on for just a moment.
Penny? Penny, can you hear me? I can't hear you. The mute is on.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going back. I'm so sorry. Thank you. Thank you.
You're
Okay.
welcome.
Okay, so, all right. So this kind of sums up what forgiveness is all about. And so I thought now we talked a little bit about why you would love your enemy last week. And we shared the stories of Abraham Lincoln and the king of Aram and whatnot. But I thought we would just we're going to go to this beatitude in particular. Blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of justice, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And basically, why you would want to love your enemy is because you can enter, you can be part of heaven. You can live happily like you would in heaven now. So those who truly believe in Jesus' teachings from the heart and practice them, well, you're already participating in the kingdom. And when you love your enemies, well, you're there. Because remember that's what love is, love your neighbor. That's what Jesus' teachings are all about. And then, okay, just to go back to the idea that the heart of Jesus' teachings is the kingdom. And the kingdom is now. So the kingdom is not a place, but a condition in which people follow the counsel. That's what kingdom really means. The counsel of the Father in personal behavior, politics, thought, and spirit. In this condition, a person would demonstrate meekness, justice, peace, purity of heart, compassion, love of self, of neighbor, of enemy, and devotion to God through a practice of authentic piety, prayer, meditation, and understanding of the loving God. Now, let's go back here. All right, I'm going to all right, remember last week we said, okay, we're going to do, we'd like to have a little bit of discussion, and we might share stories. So and I talked with one of you this week, so we're going to talk about just individually here. Okay, do we have an enemy? Who's your enemy? And how, or have you had an enemy and turned that enemy into a friend? Okay, or how would this work for you? Now, okay, I have a story. I was looking for some more Tolstoy stories, but evidently haven't unpacked those yet. Anyway, here's kind of my story with the meaning, and okay, I'm going to just leave this up, and then you guys can unmute as you would. But all right, and enemy, it's a pretty rough word, but again, it's just somebody that somebody that just really, and that verse, it just really gets to you, gets into you. And so my story is, okay, I have a neighbor, and since we moved here, it's not like a real personal kind of friendship, but but it was good because I could go over there, I could talk and say, how you doing? How you guys doing? All that kind of stuff. And it was really great. And then one day, Martin was out roaming around. He couldn't find me. And he went to her house, which it should not have been any big issue. But anyway, just make a long story short, she had to bring him home and stuff. And I just said thank you and thought it was okay. And then she literally just later on, I mean, you want to talk personal attack, and she just laid into me over the way we were treating him, and that he's not going to get any better, and he need da da da. Okay, well, that's one of those things that when we talked about, I mean, that was my soul. That was somebody attacking my soul. Okay, and so now I have learned lots of things because we've been studying this for 17 years. I have learned lots of stuff, and I have learned to, quote, turn the other cheek, to shut up. And so when she did this, I didn't say anything. I just left her house and I just said, well, we do love you guys. That's it. But it was still there. Okay. She was still my, quote, enemy, because I did not know, I did not know what would occur next. It's just, just one of those things. But so what happened? This went on for about a month. And like I say, it really, really bothered me. So finally, what I did is we went to pick flowers the other day, and so I just took some to her. I didn't know what reaction it would be, and so took some, and she was just very appreciative and whatnot. And so that was kind of like forgiveness, but we have to talk about what that did. Now, she was kind, back to me, at least for the flowers. But what you have to remember about forgiveness is that forgiveness is for you, right? Sometimes it might be for the other person too. Now, in this case, I was glad that, she just said thank you, and that's it for the flowers. But the key here is, and I feel a whole lot better, because it's not fun to live next to somebody and you don't know whether you can, whether you can communicate, whether you could ask them for help or they could ask you. But the point with forgiveness and loving your enemy is that you do not have to condone, and let's say it's somebody where there was a crime involved, you do not have to condone what they did. You don't have to say, okay, well, they need to be spared from the law and whatever punishment. No, that's not what it's all about. And basically, forgiveness is about you. And I just gave my example because of the way it feels. If you do it, if you forgive somebody like that, and trust me, I feel way, way better than I had. And that's, and that's what it's all about. And sort of, and that's, in other words, I'm happier. I don't have that resentment anymore, but I doubt that I will talk to her about anything about what, we're doing or anything, but that's okay. I'm okay with that.